Hi everyone, my name is Jim Johnson. I am the project manager for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game published by Modiphius Entertainment, and today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how to develop stories and adventures for your Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. As a disclaimer, I'll note that even though I am the project manager, this video and the perspectives inside of it are not reflective of Modiphius Entertainment and are not reflective of how you must play the game. There are as many different ways to play Star Trek Adventures as there are game masters and players, and I don't want you to listen to this video and think that I am telling you how you must do it. This is just how I happen to plan out adventures and episodes. It's not the only way to do it. There are plenty of other ways to do it. You can go find other videos and other gamers and game masters to talk to and talk about this game, and you'll find a variety of possibilities and questions. So this is just my own personal perspective, so please don't think that I'm trying to dictate to you how you should be planning your adventures or your games, because that is entirely up to you. And I hope you're having fun doing it, or if you're new to the game, I hope you're looking forward to diving into this wonderful intellectual property and in game. So let's jump into it, shall we? So Star Trek Adventures as a game is designed to help you emulate great Star Trek stories at your gaming table, whether it's virtual or real, with your players and your friends. And because of that basic conceit baked into the system, you have to understand that Star Trek Adventures is ideally suited for playing adventures and episodes that are reminiscent of the TV series. So where you look at you watch an episode of the series, any one of the series, or the movie, you should be able to bring that experience to the game table, where your player characters and your players are playing through an adventure or a mission that has the feel of a Star Trek episode. Now, how do you do that, right? So this is going to be really no surprise to anybody who's written fiction or who's dabbled in screenwriting or screenplay writing or anything like that. Every Star Trek episode has a structure, whether it's a 3-act structure or a 5-act structure, or opening with a cold open or a teaser. There's a basic structure to all Star Trek episodes, right? And this basic structure is not really any different than your basic storytelling structure, right? I'm going to show you my perspective only. There are no shortage of resources out there on how to write a good story, but at the core, a story is a character with a problem, and you have to figure out what happens, right? So when you're thinking about designing an episode or a mission or an adventure, however you want to call it, for your crew or a particular character on your crew, the first thing you should be thinking about is what kind of problem do you want to present. Is that character going to be stuck on a planet with an alien captain who speaks only in metaphors? Is that captain going to be faced with the prospect of the Dominion War going so badly that they have to figure out how to get the Romulans involved? There's no shortage of problems that you can throw at a group of Star Trek characters or one particular Star Trek character. A simple example is get the characters stuck in a tree. That's a problem, right? You have a character, you present them with a problem. Next, you have to think about how are you going to make it more challenging, more dramatic, or more difficult for those characters. How are you going to make things worse for that character or characters in the course of the episode? So they have a problem, whatever the problem may be. How is it going to get worse? How are you going to ratchet up that tension as a game master or a storyteller? How are you going to ratchet up that tension so that you got your players on edge and excited about the game? How are they going to resolve it? How are they going to figure it out? And then you need to resolve the situation. So specifically in the format for Star Trek Adventures, obviously you present the problem, and then as you're working your way through the episode or the adventure, you're presenting the players with scenes and encounters. And every scene, ideally, is carrying the plot forward. You're either delivering new information to the players, or you're giving them opportunities to do things. This could be a try-fail sequence, where you give them a task to attempt, and whether they succeed at it, something else happens, or if they fail at it, something else happens. Everything they do, whether they succeed at something or fail at something, should lead to something else, right? So if they attempt a task and they succeed, you should say, or you should be thinking about, they succeeded at this, and then this happens. Or they failed at this, and then because they failed, this happens. There should always be when you're planning an adventure, there should always be success parameters and also consequences for failure. Because in a role-playing game, of course, you never know what's going to happen with the dice. Somebody might have a good dice day, somebody might have a bad dice day, something may happen. You think that maybe the difficulty 1 or 2 task isn't too difficult, but they just totally blow the roll, and then you've got a consequence that they've failed. And so what's the natural progression from that? What happens next? How do you make things more dramatic? How do you ratchet up that tension to make it more challenging for them? So something to think about there. And then you have to resolve the situation. If you present a problem to the characters, you should have, as a game master, you should have somewhere in the back of your mind how you think those player characters will probably resolve the situation, right? If there's a diplomatic situation on a planet with 2 or 3 variables, what are the likely outcomes? What are the player characters likely to do to solve that situation, either based on the tropes of the intellectual property, the tropes of Star Trek, or just good storytelling principles, or if you're an experienced game master and you know your particular group pretty well, maybe you know their tendencies. Maybe you know that certain players will react to certain situations in a certain way consistently, so that you can kind of plan ahead for that. If you know that you're going to put them into a situation where they can either fight or talk their way out of it, and you know that most of your group are talkers, then you can probably lean on the likelihood that they're going to go with the diplomatic route as opposed to the shooty, fight it out kind of thing. A lot of variables there. But basic structure, you're going to present a problem to your characters, you're going to make things more dramatic or worse, and then you're going to have to create some notional possibilities of how to resolve it. Now, because this is a role-playing game and you have X number of players with you at the table, you are not really going to be able to predict 100% what's going to happen. And you shouldn't do that, in my opinion, because you don't want the players to ever feel like they're on a railroad from beginning to end in a story, right? If you set up your scenario or your adventure to say, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and here's the conclusion, and you structure it in such a way that it doesn't matter what the players do, like whether they succeed or fail, these things will happen, that's not necessarily very satisfying as a story, because you're not giving the players any agency, and you're not giving the player characters an opportunity to shine or to fail dramatically. So you really need to think about how to be flexible in the course of doing these 3 things, so that you can adapt as needed to the actions of the characters, and not just their actions, but also whether they succeeded or failed at things. Hopefully that makes some degree of sense. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments or on Facebook or elsewhere wherever I can be found. So how do you actually put this into play here? How do you add some flesh to this to make it something that you can bring to the game table with your group of players? I'm going to use an example from the Klingon Core rulebook that I'm finalizing here, and will be developing to go to print pretty soon. But this is something I wrote in there for some game master advice. This is a sample mission outline. This is pretty much how I approach every episode or adventure that I plan for my group. And what I do is I put together a working title, and then I come up with a premise. Now the premise is similar to a log line. If you're familiar with writing or you're familiar with screenwriting, you try to come up with like a short sentence or short paragraph about what's the high level, what's this story about. And for this particular example, I'm going with the assumption that Lieutenant Kaymore is a player character in this imaginary campaign, and this episode is going to be set somewhere in the middle of the season. And the conceit is that Lieutenant Kaymore has been spending the last several episodes throwing insults around the various spaceports in the Triangle. She's been insulting other captains, other crews, other species, like everybody she can imagine. She's been insulting back and forth. And this is the episode where all of that is going to catch up to her in a major way, and it's going to get the rest of the crew involved. So that's the basic premise, is that the character's actions over the course of the season is now going to come back and bite her in the butt, basically, or attempt to anyway. So I've got some basic concepts here. So the teaser, what I want to do at the very beginning of the episode, knowing as a game master in Star Trek Adventures that I'm going to have a chunk of threat to spend right from the beginning, because almost every episode of Star Trek Adventures, the game master gets a certain amount of threat depending on how many player characters are in the game session, right? So if I know that I'm going to have a bunch of threat at the very beginning, I can set up a teaser to where Lieutenant Kaymore and her allies They're probably having fun inside a seedy establishment, and I'm going to have them ambushed right from the very beginning. So ambushed and captured. I'll probably spend some threat to adjust the circumstances of the scene so that the dramatic situation here at the very beginning is that they've been captured, and then we cut to credits and we go on from there. So Act 1, our heroes are captured. They have to attempt to escape. They'll fail, more than likely, because I will be stacking the deck in my favor using threat and using NPCs to make it difficult. And while they are attempting to escape and then they fail, they'll meet the person who's responsible for capturing them, which was, in this case, Slidell, an Orion operative that they ran into a few episodes ago. So I'm bringing back a major NPC to add some continuity to the campaign and to give the players a chance to experience a known NPC that they love to hate, and bring them in to add some nuance and detail to the campaign. Slidell, in this case, wants more information on their ship's mission, and wants more information to use against them and the captain. So Slidell's got his own goals, right? He doesn't want to necessarily kill them. He just wants to capture them and pump them for information. Meanwhile, the captain and whoever else is on the ship, while the rest of the group is being captured, they're going to figure out, okay, our people have been captured. Do we want to rescue them? Do we want to leave them behind? Like, what's the situation here? Now, theoretically, they're going to go attempt to rescue them or break them out, or maybe teach them a lesson or something. They're not just going to go wandering off and say, well, screw them, they got captured, too bad. Maybe that'll happen, in which case we'll just have to adjust the storyline as we go. But let's assume that the captain and the rest of the crew want to go rescue the rest of their allies. Certainly not honorable to be captured by Orions, but so that's an opportunity for me in Act 1 here to do some scenes and encounters with the people that have been captured, and then to cut over to the captain and give them a scene or an opportunity to do something. What are they going to do? And then are they going to go attempt a rescue mission? And they'll meet resistance. Moving on into Act 2, then, or the next series of scenes and encounters, Slidell will interrogate Camor. Maybe there'll be a torture scene where Camor has an opportunity to do a posed task, or maybe attempt to resist some form of torture. I could hang a couple different tasks on that possibly. Continuing to ratchet up the tension. And then also opportunities for scenes where the characters who have been imprisoned can try to talk to some of the other prisoners, right, and maybe get additional information that way. And also I've added in a potential subplot hook here where one of the prisoners recognizes one of the player characters that has been imprisoned and gives them a cryptic piece of information about one of their siblings. Now this is a plot seed that I could be dropping here to build an episode later on in the season. This is a great way to kind of drop not just some plot seeds for future episodes in the form of foreshadowing, but this is also a way to give some service to the player and the player character by virtue of their history or their backstory that they've created for their character. And this could even be related to a value that they have. Like if if one of Bakel's values is related to his sister, then one of the alien prisoners giving him a cryptic piece of information about his sister may really pull on that string a little bit to say, hey, Bakel, you are now really motivated to do something about getting out of prison, because not only are you in prison, but also you have some new information about your sister's whereabouts, and that is something that they may choose to make use of their value within the course of the game. Finally, again, I tend to leave this pretty flexible because I don't always know exactly what my players are going to do or how the dice might fall in terms of whether they succeed at the tasks or fail at the tasks. But heading into Act 3 in the epilogue, needs to be adjusted a little bit based on their actions. Are they going to break out? Are they going to make it out? Is the captain and his crew going to come in and rescue them? Like, how does that impact Slidell? Is the Orion going to get away to fight another day? Do I need to spend some threat and bring in some NPCs to stack the deck a little bit? Is there another subplot I can drop in here related to something that's happened before or something that I want to have happen later? A lot of possibilities here. And then again with the epilogue, I'm just kind of writing out some estimated guesses here that, assuming it all goes well, Camor and the others escape back to the ship and live to fight another day. Now, however, they know that they have a potential plot hook to follow for Bakel and his sister. Maybe that's tied into a bigger plot point that's going on. They know that Slidell, assuming Slidell got away, could be an even more major threat to them in the near future, and this could impact what the players decide to do next. They could decide to say, hey, next episode, let's go hunt down this Orion, because we're tired of him hanging around us, or we're tired of him being a thorn in our side. Let's go do something about that. So that's an opportunity for you as a game master to shape the next episode based on what your characters have done. And it's also an opportunity for the characters to kind of shape what's going to happen next, right? And all of this is just by me throwing together a few paragraphs of plot possibilities, all tied into the basic structure of putting the characters into a problem, making things more challenging for them, and then coming up with a way to resolve it. Now, it doesn't always have to be a happy ending, right? We don't have to end every episode with the crew on the bridge, smiling at each other as they warp off to their next adventure. And we don't have to end every episode with a deep moral situation that you kind of ponder on and think, oh, that was pretty awful. What does that mean? Or, just kind of leaves you down because, there's plenty of Star Trek episodes that didn't have a happy ending, and certainly plenty that did have a happy ending. But this is just an opportunity for you to play with some possibilities here. So I know I dropped a lot of stuff on here for you, a lot of stuff to think about. I don't know if this helps or hinders necessarily, but I hope that it proved useful to some extent. I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section, and feel free to reach out to me at the Modiphius forums or the various Star Trek Adventures Facebook groups, or just find me online, and I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on this. And I hope you have a great time playing the game, planning the game, playing it with your friends, and live long and prosper, and have a great day. Thanks so much.